Hi there, and welcome to Seismic Radio. Let me just write this audio. Welcome to Seismic Radio. And this talk is about the upcoming European election. European election 2024. So that's what this talk is all about. Let me center this. Right, let's do this. Different approach today, so I just want to maybe have a different way of making videos. I don't know whether you like it or not, but we'll see. Anyway, this talk is about the European election 2024 and what is the Christian perspective? Or one Christian perspective on this, on the election. Should I vote? That's one question. Should I vote as a Christian? Should I participate or just stay out of it? I've sort of got a few ideas from friends when I talk to them. Some say, "Oh, you can't vote for anything. They're just godless people, and it's just a waste, and it's not going to get anywhere. What will happen anyway. We're in the end times. Everything is heading towards the Antichrist. Everything is going to be a big problem." Let me just type this out. Should I participate or stay out of it? Big question, and it's probably something you have to sort of find out between you and God in prayer. Find out whether you want to do this or not. The first question is, first of all, Europe used to be just in the past, I sort of remember in the 90s, the joke was that they were just a toothless tiger. They were all about sort of economic equalization within the member states of the European Union. And it was just more like an economic club where they discussed the size and the bend of a banana. That was sort of the joke. But they weren't doing really clean politics. It's changed over the years quite dramatically. Now they are doing a lot of laws which have got nothing to do with the economy. They're all political. And very often those rules and regulations, they are determined by committees who have got no legal basis. They are just a bunch of people who sit in a committee, they make decision. It's all pushed through the parliament, and then it is imposed onto the national states, the member states, who then have to accept this and put this into the national law. So it's a bit of a problem. So we've got like this stuff, and I'm not sort of an expert into politics. I haven't gone that deep into it, but sort of concepts and ideas that there are no more petrol-powered cars by 2030, that all cars have to be electric. Things like that, yeah. They were decided there. There's another thing as well, which I find quite annoying. If you are listening from outside Europe, you may not have noticed this. If you are inside Europe, I'm sure you will have noticed this. They made a law about the lights on cars, and they chose a very cold color, so that you don't need as much power, and you've got loads and loads of light coming out of it. And what I find is, and obviously, it may make a difference. It may make a difference as well. Sort of if you have got a lot of electricity that's powered up, your alternator will be that little bit heavier. Will have to do a little bit much more work, which means that you use a little bit more petrol. How much more? It's probably insignificant. You won't even notice it. But in the effort, to carbon neutrality and reducing energy consumption and things like that, they've decided that you have to have this cold LED light, which is really, really bright. And before we had H4 light and H4 bulbs, the efficiency is somewhere in the 90% region. LED lights efficiency goes down the inefficiency is 90%. The inefficiency, like the stuff that's turned into heat with LED lights, is down to 10% or something. So they are vastly more efficient. But anyway, nobody thought about this. The lights are now so bright that when I go down the road on a narrow street and there's another car coming the opposite way, with these lights on, I'm blinded and I really struggle to see. Whereas traditional halogen lamps or halogen lights, H4 lights, no problem at all. I can see, I don't get blinded, everything is fine, but these new lights, big problem. But that's the kind of stuff which comes from the EU. So they make these decisions and they are forced all the way throughout the European Union, and somehow they end up here in Britain as well, because Britain seems to go along. Even though there's been a big outcry about these new lights on new cars and how problematic they are. Okay, so the EU is no longer a toothless tiger. They issue a lot of laws. Laws will affect people all the way throughout the EU. Some stuff is good, some stuff is very doubtful. Let me say before I knock the EU, one good stuff was that excess telephone charges for roaming are no longer possible. Yeah, so if you've got a contract with a telephone provider and you leave the European Union, not the European, you leave your country inside the European Union, they can't bombard you with excessive charges, but it has to be de facto free. Yeah, so you don't pay any extra for. This is the way I understand it, and it worked a long time for my phone as well here with the UK number, even after Britain left the EU. Sort of those rules were there, but they've started to change it, and they are now coming up with draconian charges. So if you go abroad and you use data, it costs you £5 a day, unless you've still got an old contract, where it doesn't cost you £5 a day. But anyway, that's the positive side of the EU. Lots of negative things as well, but the EU is quite powerful now, and that's a problem. So they make laws, they impose them on your nation states, and your nation states then have to turn them into national law, and then they become active. And a lot of stuff which comes from there is very doubtful and is not very good, and it's all agenda driven, and some of the agendas are not very pleasant. Okay, so where do I stand as a Christian? What should I do? Should I vote, or should I just say, okay, these are godless people, they make godless decisions, there's not much I can do anyway, so I may as well stay out of it, let politics be politics, and do my thing. Now, big mistake as well, that's what I think. The Christian vote is quite strong, even if Christianity within Europe is evangelical Christianity is fairly low. We're looking at the 5% barrier, maybe even less than that. But if all of us, are going to the polls and vote for parties which stand for Christian principles, and we vote member into the European Parliament who stand for principles which are close to Christian principles, then this 5% may be the difference between putting them into leadership or into opposition, by not going to vote for them. So it's very, very, I personally believe it's very important. Okay, the first question is, what should politics be all about? Yeah. So what should the rulers decide? And so first of all, it's about justice. Yeah. Okay, let me just ask the question, what should politics be for? And that's one way we can measure what we vote for. Before question mark. And then we've got the first one, which is justice. Yeah. So, and safety, security, protection. So that all goes into this. Yeah. So justice, safety, security, protection. When you've got a government should provide justice. Yeah, real, true justice. The laws they issue, they should be there to protect people. There should be safety as well, security as well, and protection from attack. I should be able to live in a society where wicked people are put behind bars or dealt with, and where good people or ordinary people can walk safely on the streets. When I look at Germany, in my hometown there was, I'm not sure when it happened, but I've heard about it from several sources, but somebody was murdered in the middle of the street. I think it was in the evening, if I remember right. And there were just a bunch of immigrants who have come from North Africa. And they were quite given to violence, and it was they had an argument or something. They pulled out a knife, stabbed the guy, maybe in the heat of the moment, and he died later in hospital. It shouldn't be happening. Stuff like that shouldn't be happening. Those people should be cleared off the streets from the onset. You know, if people using violence to settle an argument, if people, you know, use their own justice to, or, you know, even just for evil and wicked things, they should be taken out. No, they got those two guys, and that's like in my hometown in Germany. They got those two guys, and they were dealing with them. What would happen, you know, in the sense of justice, I don't know, but that's really what it's all about. You should be able to roam the streets. Now, the problem is a lot of people are afraid now to go at night. I know one of my friends, she works in the town center, and she finishes late at night, and sometimes there are some violent occurrences in the center of town, in the town center, and it really scares her, and to the point that she doesn't know whether to carry on with the job or not. And again, where's the police? Where's the police to look for order and for safety? And I know they can't be everywhere. I know they're probably struggling to deal with the changes in society, the changes in violence, the changes in crime. Here in the UK, we've got a scenario that the police has turned into some thought crime. So if you post something on the internet which is deemed to be offensive, or somebody feels he is offended by it and reports it to the police, then the police acts on it, and it turns more or less into some Orwellian, that's sort of the danger, some Orwellian implementation of justice, where your thoughts, the things you say, you know, your freedom of speech is gone out of the window, and that is pursued, as opposed to, you know, people who steal, who are violent, who rob, who have got no regards for the law, and just work for their own gain, and they don't care whether people die or suffer or have got great losses in their process. So it's a big problem, and I just want to point this out, that you need to have a government that is strong on justice, that doesn't, kind of zero tolerance, that doesn't allow any violence, that will create an environment where the weak, you know, the children, women, the elderly, feel safe to walk the streets when it's dark, and dare to go outside, yeah, and don't have to fear anything, because everything is under control, and everything is safe and is secure, is protected. And the question is, are governments doing this? Are governments looking after this? And I was listening to somebody today, and I think it's worldwide, that most governments are failing. Politicians come into power, they probably have got the best of intentions, and if they try to sharpen the law or make it a bit more, you know, have a bit more weight to the law, very often they get torpedoed by other parts in society who see this as too heavy-handed, and it's not right, and you should, you know, ease off and let people get away with heinous crimes. It's a problem. It's a big problem. So what else is the politics for? And it's for building infrastructure. So we're looking for roads, telecoms, possibly banking. You know, the whole money transfer. Let's put this maybe in a different heading, but roads, telecoms, railways, or public transport, and what else? Sewage, water, electricity. Okay, this is all stuff which we can't do by ourselves. If I look at what's been happening in Germany, the government has decided to go all green, ideologically driven. Electricity is most expensive in Germany, or until recently it was the most expensive, bar Kenya. So we've got a third world country where electricity was a bit more expensive than in Germany. And as a result, a lot of companies are starting to leave the country. So they can't deal with the high cost of energy. Telecoms in Germany pretty poor compared to some other countries. You've got fairly low internet rates, and there's been no real investment being made. The roads used to be good in Germany. That's what I remember. Same here in Britain as well. They used to be a lot better in the past, but they've been neglected. Yeah. So I've seen some roadworks which have been up for a long time. It's on the A44 going into Dortmund. And it's quite interesting. I mean, stuff should have been done at least within a year. And I think those roadworks have been up by about 4, 5, maybe 6 years, maybe even longer. Yeah. And it's simply not getting done. I don't know why. There might be some reasons for it. But it's just sort of bridges are falling down, motorway bridges. And again, it takes years for those bridges to be built up again. And I go back to the 70s, and if they decided to build a motorway, within a fairly short time, the motorway was up and running. And I still remember those years where things went faster, better, and they were just investing into infrastructure, and it just happened, and it was possible to do it. It doesn't happen today anymore. Again, I'm not sure what the problem is. Education is not necessarily government domain, but it in Europe it happened to be. So education is very important. Is it free? Does it cost? How good is it? Germany used to be very, very good, and it's all gone down the drain. Not sure why. Maybe there are some reasons for it. I've heard some. Again, the whole migration thing, that in total the level has been drawn down because a lot of classes have got a lot of students, especially smaller classes where German is not the first language, but it's the second or third language, and and it's a problem. It's a problem. So students don't learn as efficiently as before. And again, it's not being dealt with, and it's politically not correct, and all that. But also, I think in general, education has gone down for various reasons. Maybe some laissez-faire approach. Maybe it's not valued high enough. So there are a whole lot of reasons there, but it's poor. PISA study in Germany shown that students can, after a couple of years in school, can barely read and write, whereas in the past it never used to be a problem. So education, government things gone down the drain. Here in England, same thing. Education. I've worked in education for 30 years, so I'm probably entitled to say a word or two about this, what's going on here. And the big shock I have is that I was dealing with students in engineering who couldn't understand simple math. Yeah, sort of simple math principles just weren't there. And they came from school into colleges, into further education, and you had to teach them basic math, which shouldn't be the case. Yeah, they should all be prepared. They should have an understanding of basic math. English as well. Some students couldn't string a sentence together without 10 words, 8 mistakes. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it sometimes felt like that. So education in England doesn't work very well. And I think I'm not sure that they could sit down and talk for hours what could be the reasons. But again, that's a government job. Education should be some basic level of education where people can read and write, where they can calculate, where they can deal with everyday tasks. Where they can understand law as well. Very important. There's nothing done in schools. People are not taught about law, maybe for good reasons, because they don't want the populace to be educated to that level. Maybe. Yeah. So education is a problem, but it's a government remit, and we are taught a lot of stuff which I think which is pretty much irrelevant for life, and a lot of the relevant stuff which is necessary for life we are failing abysmally in the West. Okay, so that's education. Education goes down the drain. What else have you got? We've got the economy. Yeah. So people should be able to live in dignity. Dignity. Possibly pension systems, which comes in there. And it's all failing. People are no longer living in dignity. There's this joke here in Germany about the new Bürgergeld, which is quite generous. And there's this, not joke really, it's really sad. There are people who have worked for many years in their lives and they've paid into the pension system. And the way it's just, gone and panned out is that Bürgergeld people are filled up with money, and depending if they live in a lavish house and they have got quite a few kids, they're married, and for them very often it doesn't pay for them to work because Bürgergeld is just a lot easier, so they get more than working, whereas pensioners do not get enough to live off the pension, to be able to survive without getting some aid from food banks and things like that. So and we find this all over the place, all over Europe, and this politics has gone wrong somewhere. And it cannot be that people are encouraged to leave their works and live off the welfare state if they are in certain conditions, and people who work and have worked all their lives are turned into beggars because they're not given enough to survive. Big problem. But that's reality at the moment. And what else has the state got to do? State has got to be pragmatic, and so that means just deal with problems, deal with them effectively, as they come up and they arise. So again, a couple of other areas, so traffic management, traffic law, just trying to think. Ensure, okay, I put this down right at the bottom, a state should ensure, I think it's an American term, inalienable rights. So such as freedom of speech, freedom of movement. What else have you got? Freedom of lifestyle, maybe, the way you want to live. And again, what we find today with politics, there's an attack on inalienable rights in all ways, and very often to protect minorities who feel offended even though there's no real offense being made. And freedom of movement, we've seen this with COVID. It was, I think, a lot of constitutional rights were broken there, and whatever happened there wasn't right. But it gives us an idea of what is likely to come. Okay, so we've got the European elections. We've got all these things to look out for. And what should we be looking for? We should be looking for, from a Christian perspective, so Christian perspective. Here we didn't do it. No, it doesn't do it. Perspec. Don't need to click on enter, need to click on enter, and then it works. Christian perspective on politics. That was the wrong keys. On politics. So what should we be looking for? We should be looking for parties which stand for Christian values. So Christian morality. Right, so I'm looking about morality. Okay, what is Christian morality? So for example, heterosexual marriage, freedom of speech, freedom of faith and speech, freedom of religion maybe, Christian values, justice, protection of the poor, What other Christian bodies have we got? Let me have a look at my little list. Um, the next thing, it's not necessarily Christian values, but a party should be pragmatic as opposed to ideological. Logical, yeah. So again, they should be dealing with problems, so whatever the problems are which arise. And the last couple of years, I think problems which we had in Germany and in England were quite quite unique. I mean, when I look back the last 10 years, I think the amount of difficult stuff which has come up, like waves of migration, Islamic terrorism, which has hit France, Germany, England, where people have been blowing things up, blowing themselves up, running with trucks over people, things like that. How do you deal with that? It's really, really difficult. And bearing in mind there are individuals, radicalized individuals who are doing this stuff. Not, everybody who pursues this religion. And then there's always a sensitivity about, they're tiptoeing around, we don't want to offend anybody and so on. But, things like that need to be dealt with. Also, people who are likely to commit those heinous acts, they should be taken out of the equation in the sense that they, if they are immigrants, and very often illegal immigrants, they should be sent back straight away and not just observed for a long time. And if they are challenged, they get one appeal after the other to not being relocated to their country. And things like that, which is just a pragmatic way of dealing with, a very crazy situation. But very often there's this ideological approach, very often off the left, which doesn't allow, political correctness and all this stuff, which doesn't allow anything like that to take place. And it's just some approach which is not right. Party should uphold the law. That's very important as well. Which again is very often not done, and laws are changed with stuff which can be easily pursued. Avoid totalitarianism, and it doesn't matter which party it is. Avoid strong political leaders. There's a danger when you've got a strong political leader in a party and the party gets into power, that everything just orbits around one person, and that can be a big problem. Okay, so when you come to the European election, there are parties on the left, on the right, in the middle. There are Christian parties as well. It depends on which country you are, and you should look for these things and then, try to vote for parties that fit in with that. We need, as Christians, freedom of speech. We need freedom of religion. We need to be able to say that, for example, heterosexual marriage is right. All the other bits, from a Christian perspective, from a biblical perspective, they are not a marriage. There may be a marriage in the eyes of some states or some political organizations, but from a Christian perspective, they are not. A marriage is between a man and a woman. As easy as that. What you find is when you make these statements, we have seen this in Finland, that a politician has just quoted the Bible, and the politician was drawn into a lawsuit, which went over many years, cost a lot of money. In the end, the politician was justified and was acknowledged that what she said was legal. But that's the madness we are in. That certain groups in society, they can say what they want. Very often minority groups, and they point out that they are minority groups, and what the majority thinks and considers to be right is completely ignored and punished. And it goes from, when you look at this whole marriage thing, it goes from that you don't persecute them, which again I'm sure you shouldn't. Yeah, you don't persecute them, you don't give them a hard time. Then it goes to acceptance, and now you are required to praise and to jubilate them. And if you don't do this, then it's a big problem. Yeah. So again, we have to, as Christians, stand for what the Bible stands for. And we have to vote for parties which stand for the concepts which are in the Bible. And when you look at parties which go for the new morality, rebellion against God, where what the Bible says, what is evil is called good, and what is good is called evil. You can see this in Isaiah, I think it's chapter 5, round about there. We need to avoid giving our vote for those parties. It's, from my perspective, it's rebellion against God. It's rebellion against a society and culture which has been working for thousands of years, and suddenly everything is turned upside down. And they come up with some crazy ideas which are unfounded in science, which are immoral from a biblical perspective. And it doesn't mean that we have to persecute, hate, or give those people a hard time. All it means is that we should be able and we should be allowed to uphold our ideas of what life should be like. And we are not anymore. On the contrary, you're in danger depending on which country you are, and how badly freedom of speech is being canned up and locked up. You get in trouble for saying these things. And I think it's important to be able to at least be allowed to say these things, but it's no longer the case. We are all heading into some Orwellian society where you've got the thought police. I mean, in America, at one stage, they had the Ministry of Truth, where somebody had to decide what is truth from things which were done on the internet. And you think, that is not that is just crazy. In Germany, they had the Korrektiv, a left-wing organization heavily funded by the government, who then had to, present truth, I guess, or disprove things. So again, the point I'm trying to make here is look for these parties who stand for these things. Look for parties who don't look after the weak, who don't allow people to live in dignity, who don't give people their wages. For example, they mess about with the pension to the point that people can't live off the pension anymore. And they rob them. They rob them for what they've worked for years, and then in some desire for political correctness, they give it to people who haven't worked for it, and who just pick up the welfare payments, which should really go to those pensioners. You have to look for a pragmatic party, a party that is good in dealing with problems as they arise. Freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of lifestyle. When I looked at the whole Corona thing, when this came up, I was shocked on constitutional rights, how they were tread, how they were abandoned, and how people were persecuted for not wearing their masks, for going somewhere where they shouldn't be going because the government said you can't travel anymore, or you can't move your car anymore. And what is my approach? My political approach to this would be is educate the population, tell them what the risks are, tell them the avenues which they can do to protect themselves, invest into the health service and provide facilities to pick up people who fall sick, and have some heavy investment in that, and instead of spending millions on drugs which weren't proven to do any help whatsoever, and which were just pushed through the through being authorized as drugs. And Sweden did it, and it worked very well. The death rates were pretty much the same as in any other country, and yet people had freedom of movement. Vulnerable people had the right to isolate themselves from society, were supported by the state. Everybody else was told to just get on with their lives. Okay, you want a party. Let me put this down. Individual rights. Right to privacy. Okay, that's what you want. Again, it's today, it doesn't happen anymore. There's so much data about you, and the data becomes available to pretty much everybody, that your right to privacy goes out of the window. In China, you've got like the social point system. So if you cross a traffic light when it's red, or you do anything you shouldn't be doing, or you're in a place where you shouldn't be, it's picked up automatically and entered into some sort of database, and you've got some social balance. And good people have got a high balance, so they can travel abroad, get passports, get train tickets, and bad people, they can't even get train tickets. Now, stuff like that is an Orwellian society. You don't want this. You don't want to live in a society like that. You have a right to privacy, and this right should be met as well. And look for parties who are esteeming those rights, privacy rights, and so on. Avoid totalitarianism. Avoid, as I said earlier, parties who are where have I got it? I'm just looking famous and poor. Who are ideological, who are just working on ideology, like climate change and things like that. And we've seen this in Germany. A whole nation is brought down. There are big companies fleeing the country. A lot of money, a lot of investment is leaving Germany. People are heading into unemployment. They're picked up by the new Bürgergeld if they are in certain conditions. But the way it's going to go is that the bill which is generated through all these things and through the welfare state, soon they won't be able to have the money to pay for it anymore, because the companies who pay the taxes to afford such a generous welfare state, they've left the country and they're no longer there. And instead, there's just an army of unemployed people, where eventually the money tap has to be tightened up a bit, and less money is coming out for those people. So, vote for the European election. Look for parties, again, that stand for Christian values. A Christian value is, put this down, make work rewarding and required. If you can work, you should work. If you don't want to work, but you can work, you shouldn't be getting any money. Doesn't mean that people are left by the wayside, but capable people should be provided with work, and they should be required to work as well for their living, and not be idle. Again, very, very strange concept. Most parties today wouldn't go anywhere near it. And I'm not talking about pensioners, but I'm talking about people at working age who are in a position to work, should be working for any money they get from the government. It's good for them, so that they've got some pride, and that they're not just people who stretch out their hand and say, feed me. And it's a biblical principle as well. If you don't want to work, you shouldn't eat. As simple as that. So you have to look for parties who are pursuing those sort of values and those set of values, and then cast your vote to them. When I look at Germany, all the so-called center parties have failed the people. That's my personal opinion. This is all the big parties in Germany. You've got one party on the right, one party on the left, and they probably are in true opposition. They've got different concepts, and they actually seem to care for the people and they are intending to make politics for the people, for the weak, the poor, for the hardworking people in the country. That's what they seem to stand for. And in addition, they've got a fairly pragmatic approach. The bizarre thing is that they're on the extreme left, on the extreme right. I don't think the one on the extreme right is that far right. It's pretty much what the Conservative Party used to stand for about 10, 20 years ago. That's what they're standing for now. And it's a Conservative Party who has moved into the left, into the progressive type of politics, and under Merkel, and has never had the courage or the vision to move back to their basics, to their original values. And I think that's a problem in Germany. So you have about 4 parties, and the current parties have pretty much destroyed the country step by step. They've been destroying the economy, destroying the culture of the country, destroying things like free speech. Most people believe they can't say what, it's actually still legal to say, but that is sort of the message they've brought over. Their democratic understanding is that any party who disagrees with them, they try to get the Constitutional Court onto them, the Secret Service onto them, and try to pursue them. They try to outlaw other parties who don't agree with them. And to me, it's just totalitarian. It's fascism, but fascism on the left as opposed to the right. Not sure what the definition of fascism is, whether it has to be right. But it's very, very bad politics, and it's just maybe they are conceding to those parties that they are incapable of running the country, and they are afraid of those smaller parties which have got very good concepts and very good ideas to run the country. And again, I have to say I looked into this, and you get some on the right, some on the left, and some of them have got very good ideas. And they're not afraid to speak them out either. Also, when Corona was on, it's only those 2 extreme parties who were very critical about the government politics of shutting everything down and running the country against the wall. Unnecessarily. Yeah, let me put it this way, unnecessarily. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this. The important thing, again, from a Christian point of view, is pray about it. Pray and, try and get involved a little bit. See what's out there in the country where you are. What can you vote for? Look at the parties which are there. Look at the parties which are closest to Christian values, without expecting that even if that party gets in, that they will follow those values. Very often they don't, and it's with most political parties. They start off really good with very good ideas. Once they get into power, those ideas, they erode very quickly, and you never really know what's there at the end of it. I never thought that the Greens in Germany would support war, but they are pretty active and pretty supportive towards the Ukraine. I don't mind. I think it's good and it's important, but still, it's surprising as well how things turn around and how people turn and how parties turn around and do stuff you would have never thought they would be getting into. Pray about it, but also, and let me put this right at the end, pray for your government. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter whether you like the government or not. Pray for the government. Pray that they make right decisions. Pray that God will scare the wits out of them if they make wrong decisions. As Christians, we are the salt of the earth, and as Christians, we are the last wall hemming in godlessness and the rule of the devil, hemming in the rule of the Antichrist. And how are we this last wall? Because we go to the Father, we petition for our politicians, for our people in power, for our nations, and we are asking God that He will intervene, that He will lead and guide people, that He will lead and guide rulers, and give us, so that they will give us freedom for our faith, and not lead us into turmoil. So it's important to pray for authorities in your life. Pray for authorities for your nations, and ask God to intervene. Ask God to deal with what is going on. I'm going to finish at this point. I've talked a long time. I don't know whether it's interesting or not so interesting, but I felt it's quite important. There's an important election coming on. So if you are in Europe, and that means you are, I think, English-speaking countries is probably Ireland, Holland. A lot of people speak good English. Germany as well. A lot of English speakers there. Sweden probably too. Finland as well. Denmark, I'm sure. So if you listen to this talk, just take this to heart. I know that other countries, America, you have got big elections coming up. Trump versus Biden, most likely. What shall I say about Trump? I don't believe he's a savior. I don't believe he is the answer for everything that is wrong. I believe he's a better choice for the people that are behind him, for some of the ideas he has. And again, when I look at this catalog, about justice, about infrastructure, about looking after people, making sure that jobs are available and not being too ideologically driven. He has a pragmatic approach, and let me just insert. Here we go. Individual. Yeah, I'm just trying to fix the text here. He's got a pragmatic approach, maybe a bit more than Biden. Then again, Biden, I'm sure he should never be president at this time in his life. He should take it easy and rest. And I don't understand why the Democratic Party in America can't find somebody that's more suitable for the job than him, and whether it's all just a personality cult or whatever. Again, the answer is not in the politicians who are there. The answer is in God. And in God intervening with these people and stopping them from making bad mistakes and leading them into wise, good political decisions for the benefit of the nation. In England as well, elections are coming up about the same time. Not sure what's happening here in England. Politics over here is quite horrendous on the Conservative side as well as on Labour. Not sure where Labour stands, and it's pretty close. I think the hope for Labour to be voted in is that the Conservatives have performed so badly and that people just don't like them anymore and abstain from voting for them. And I think that's sort of where we are politically. Somebody said today, I was listening to Amir Safari, and he said that, and I kind of agree with them, that discontent with politics is throughout the world. People are fed up with politicians. They're fed up with people who abuse the system to enrich themselves on the taxpayers' money, who are not very good in running government, who are making a lot of mistakes, and who are very difficult. So, yeah, that's really what is going on here. But all we can do is just pray. We can pray. We can seek the face of God on behalf of the people who rule over us, and ask God to put up boundaries, to be an inspiration to them, and more importantly, even to lead them into an understanding of the gospel and becoming children of the living God, politicians, in the hope that it'll change their ways and they will become more accountable, more just, more righteous, more interested in doing the job they are called to do, and less so to feed their egos or their pockets or whatever. Okay, God bless, and bye-bye. Final statement, there are good politicians out there as well. Look for them, vote for them if you can find them, and make the most of them. Make the most of your vote. If you can vote, and you are in England, in America for your national elections or the European elections, which are coming up in June, go for it. Spend a little bit of time, try to find out who is up for election. Pray about these people, and as you pray for them, maybe try and find some direction of who to vote for. And even if it's just a statement of discontent with whatever is going on, if you vote for a very small party, if you vote for a bigger party, giving them a better chance to put people into parliament who stand for more for our interests as Christians. Okay, God bless and bye-bye from Michael here at Seismic Radio.